After my funeral, my son Julian Lockridge, along with my sister-in-law Clarissa Sterling and my mom Eleanor Sterling, headed back to my house. As soon as we walked through the door, Julian's face darkened. He tossed his cap onto the floor, clearly irritated. Man, these two really know how to hang on. After all that poison, they still didn't go down. I stood frozen. Was he talking about me and my husband? Could it be that our deaths were intentional? But how could that be? We were his parents. We'd given everything for him and even left him a huge inheritance when we died. Before I could figure it out, Clarissa, tears in her eyes, clung to Julian. Yeah, it's been such a long time. I'm sorry you had to go through all that. Julian knelt right down in front of her. Mom, you've had it tough. I'm not complaining. I just hate how these two kept hanging on, making it impossible for us to truly be a family. My mom's grin couldn't have been wider. Listening to their conversation, everything clicked. Years ago, Clarissa and I were both pregnant at the same time. But right before I was about to give birth, my brother died in an accident. We were really close, so I looked after Clarissa through her whole pregnancy. I paid for everything. The check-ups, the C-section, all the vitamins, the recovery center, and even the baby's clothes. That money was what set Clarissa off. She couldn't stand that my son was born into wealth, while her own kid would grow up without a father. So she came up with the idea to swap the babies. When my mom found out, instead of stopping her, she jumped in to help. After the switch, they were terrified it would come out, so they had my son killed and put all their love into Julian.
Son. That's when it hit me.
The child who died over 20 years ago wasn't my nephew.
It was my.
All these years, I'd been raising someone else's child, and that child turned out to be a monster, a traitor, and a murderer. My soul was shaking with rage. I had to watch as the three of them laughed and celebrated before everything went dark. I don't know how long passed, but when I opened my eyes again, Clarissa was still jabbering in my ear. Nadia, I can't even begin to thank you. If it weren't for you, I'd never have been able to C-section at this fancy hospital. Your brother would have been so proud of you. I know he'd be smiling down on us. As soon as I heard that, I knew it. I had been reborn. As soon as I heard that, I knew it. I had been reborn. I was back on the day of my C-section. Reginald, my husband, was sitting by my bedside, giving me encouragement. Despite the burning anger inside me, I quickly calmed myself. After all, none of this had happened yet. I thought it through. The baby swap was probably planned right after the C-section. The recovery center had private rooms, so there would have been no chance to swap the babies later on. Once we went home, the babies would look different. If they swapped them, they'd get caught. With that in mind, I forced a smile. Clarissa, don't worry about it. You're like my big sister.
Get some rest.
You'll be the first one to go in for the C-section. Clarissa was staring at my belly, practically salivating. I pretended not to notice. Once Clarissa was wheeled into the operating room, Eleanor rushed in after her. I immediately jumped up. Reginald, we're going home. I'm not having the C-section today. I'm going to try for a natural birth. Let's go.
Huh? Why?
What's going on? Didn't you want to have the C-section at the same time as Clarissa? Reginald was confused, though he was already packing up to leave. My due date was still a few days away, but after Clarissa kept pushing for the C-section, I changed my mind. I knew that if I told them I had been reborn, they'd think I was crazy. And even if I tried to switch the babies later, they might retaliate and hurt my child. The best solution was to give birth separately so there wouldn't be a chance for a swap and my baby would be safe. Plus, my brother had always been so good to me. I couldn't bear to hurt his child. After a bunch of back and forth, we finally left the hospital. Albert, my father-in-law, was driving, still clearly puzzled. Nadia, what's going on? Why the sudden change? You were all set for the C-section. Now you want to try for a natural birth. Reginald, flustered, stammered. Maybe the C-section freaked you out?
Are you
scared? Genevieve, my mother-in-law, shot Reginald and Albert a look that could freeze a hot stove. What do you two know about childbirth? Nadia can decide when and how she gives birth. It's none of your business.
Got it?
Pregnancy's already hard enough, and now you're adding to it? Are you trying to make her lose her mind? We didn't mean any harm. Just asking out of curiosity. Albert explained meekly. Genevieve snorted, giving them no quarter. Unless you've got a uterus, you've got no business asking about childbirth. Albert quickly apologized. Genevieve turned to me, her voice soft. Nadia, don't worry. We support whatever you decide. If you change your mind and want the C-section later, just let us know. We won't think you're indecisive. Don't feel bad. Reginald was on the phone, asking his friends about the best hospital for natural births. At last, I felt calm again. We grabbed a quick bite before heading home. Albert didn't leave until we were safely inside the building. Before getting out of the car, Genevieve took my hand gently. Nadia, you're almost full term. It's fine to wait a few more days. If you want to see section later, you can always change your
Mind.
We won't think you're being flaky. Don't feel embarrassed. My heart ached. My mom had never cared for me. She'd practically wished I was dead. But Albert and Genevieve spoiled me. They didn't get upset at my little tantrum. They just wanted to make sure I was okay. How blind had I been in my past life to mistake wolves for family? When I got home, I froze in the doorway. Come on in. There's still a bowl left. Reginald, hurry up and bring it to Nadia. Eleanor called. While holding a bowl of chicken soup for Clarissa. Clarissa, with her big belly, hadn't given birth yet. She took a slow sip of the soup, looking a bit uneasy. As soon as I lay down on the delivery bed, I overheard the nurse say you had backed out. Well, if you weren't going to do it, I sure wasn't either. I jumped off that bed and came straight home. Eleanor wasn't as calm as Clarissa. Her face went dark. Nadia, just thinking about it gets me riled up. You picked the doctor. You got scared and backed out, leaving Clarissa hanging. What on earth were you thinking? Clarissa quickly jumped in to smooth things over. Maybe Nadia didn't think it through. I was already in the operating room. But look, everything turned out fine. Mom, don't be too hard on her. If this had been my past life, I'd have thought Clarissa was really standing up for me. But after everything that's happened, I'm not that gullible anymore. I snorted. I was always planning to go natural. You're the one who insisted we give birth on the same day, and that's why I agreed to a C-section. What's wrong with changing my mind? Eleanor's eyebrows shot up, and she marched right over to me, her finger nearly poking my face. How dare you talk to your sister-in-law like that? She's pregnant. What if you scare he? I was a bit startled by the sudden outburst, but Reginald quickly stepped in front of me. Eleanor, Nadia's pregnant too. You don't think you might be scaring her? His words made perfect sense, and Eleanor had nothing to say to that. She just huffed and crossed her arms. Reginald kept going. Clarissa, you misunderstood. Nadia wanted to go natural, but the C-section was something she didn't want. That's why she left.
The doctor we
found is the best around. As soon as Clarissa heard I was going natural, she panicked. While Reginald was in the kitchen, she grabbed my arm, whispering urgently, Nadia, don't listen to those guys. He's just worried that if you have a C-section, you won't be able to have another baby for years. He's trying to stop you from giving birth naturally just so you'll be a baby-making machine. Eleanor nodded in agreement, no longer angry. Exactly. Natural birth is risky. You could tear, need an episiotomy, or even have your uterus prolapse. It's dangerous. I was getting fed up and cut them off. Whether it's a C-section or a natural birth, it's my decision. If you two think C-sections are the better option, go get one yourselves.
Don't drag me
into it. They opened their mouths to argue back, but I quickly added, if you think our doctors know, good. Go find one you trust. This was the first time I'd spoken to them like that, and it caught them completely off guard. They just stood there, momentarily stunned, unable to respond. Eleanor awkwardly cleared her throat. I'm just looking out for you. I'm your mom.
Would I
really want to harm you? I rolled my eyes inside my head. I was too tired after a long day to deal with them. Besides, Clarissa was further along in their pregnancies, so she'd probably give birth first. You two should go home. I need to rest. Clarissa thought for a moment, then placed a hand on her belly. Nadia, for the next few days, Eleanor and I will stay here. It's closer to the hospital, and it'll be more convenient in case anything happens. Eleanor, not sure what Clarissa was after, still nodded eagerly. Yeah, your house has plenty of rooms. I'll be able to look after both of you. Didn't you say you wanted to eat sauerkraut fish? I'll make it for you tomorrow. When I first found out I was pregnant, I suddenly got this huge craving for Eleanor's sauerkraut fish. So I called her up, all sweet and innocent. asking if she could come over for a few days and cook for me. Eleanor almost had a meltdown. She went ballistic. "You've got to be kidding me," she fumed. "Pregnant women don't ask their mothers to babysit them like that. You should be calling your fancy professor mother in law to help." I could see right through it. I knew exactly what she and Clarissa were up to. They probably thought this would be the perfect opportunity to try to talk me into a C-section to push forward with their baby switching plan. But there was no way I was letting that happen. I wasn't about to let a bunch of criminals into my home. No, I'm not comfortable with other people staying here. Eleanor's face turned bright red. "What do you mean, other people?" "I'm your mother. I carried you for 9 months and wiped your butt when you were a baby. This is your sister-in-law, and she's carrying your brother's only son, the last hope of our family. This is my house. You've got your own place, so why do you need to crash here?" I swung the door wide open, giving them a polite little gesture. "If you don't like how far we are from the hospital, why not stay in a hotel?" Clarissa didn't say a word, just gave Eleanor a look. That was all it took for Eleanor to drop to the floor like a sack of potatoes. "Look at this, Richard. Your daughter's living in a mansion, and here I am, being kicked out to sleep under a bridge. Son, you better take me and your wife out of here. We can't survive this kind of treatment." That's when I really understood what "no good deed goes unpunished" meant. Reginald rushed over to defend me. All right, calm down. Nadia's pregnant and upset. Let's not start a fight. I'll go get your room ready." Eleanor's mood flipped faster than a pancake. Once she got her way, she jumped up from the floor like she hadn't just made a scene. "I'll take the room next to Clarissa's." Over the next few days, whether Clarissa and Eleanor were being sweet or snarky, I ignored them all. I just kept saying I was going for a natural birth. Clarissa's face got more and more tense, but she couldn't really do anything. I mean, she couldn't just knock me out and drag me into a C-section, could she? Every day, I counted the hours, waiting for Clarissa to go into labor. I wasn't going to let her steal my thunder. I wasn't going to give birth on the same day. Finally, the day came. Clarissa came running up to me, all panicked. "Nadia, call the ambulance. My water just broke." I stared at the puddle on the floor, frozen in place. I'd always thought that as long as we didn't give birth on the same day, the babies wouldn't be swapped. If the babies stayed safe, everything would be fine. But now, seeing Clarissa's face go as white as a sheet, a dark thought crossed my mind. What if Clarissa died right now? That would mean Cedric, the nephew who had pretended to be my son, would never be born. I kept wondering, if I just stalled and didn't get her to the hospital, would Clarissa die? Eleanor was already on her feet, packing up stuff and dialing the emergency line. When she saw me standing there like a zombie, she yelled, "What's wrong with you? Clarissa's water broke and you're just standing there?" Clarissa shoved Eleanor aside and pretended to head for the door, but then she suddenly lunged at me. I didn't have time to react. She knocked me right over. The pain and shock hit me all at once, and I passed out. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in a hospital bed. Reginald and my in-laws were all gathered around me, looking worried. Before I could speak, Reginald quickly explained, "You fell at home, and luckily, Eleanor called and got you to the hospital. The doctor had to do an emergency C-section, but the baby's perfectly healthy." Did I fall? My memory was foggy, and I wasn't sure if I tripped or if someone shoved me. I tried to sit up and catch a glimpse of my baby. One look, and my heart sank into my stomach. This baby, it was Cedric, not my Julian. No matter how hard I tried to keep my baby safe, I still got played. I was so furious. I could barely see straight, but I knew I couldn't let myself lose it. It had to be after my C-section when Reginald and my in-laws were so focused on me, they didn't even notice what was happening with the baby. That's when Eleanor and Clarissa took their chance. I'd seen other families where everyone fusses over the baby and ignores the mother, but I never thought mine would be so caught up in me that they wouldn't notice the swap. Of course, I couldn't blame them. Who would have ever imagined Eleanor was capable of something like this? Reginald kept beating himself up. "It's my fault. I should have stayed home instead of going out for groceries. When I saw you lying there, covered in blood, my heart just about broke." Genevieve smacked the back of his head. "And now you're still sulking? What? You waiting for Nadia to come and coddle you?" Albert, trying to calm her down, said, "Genevieve, lower your voice. Nadia's sister-in-law is still asleep." I glanced over and saw Clarissa, smiling in her sleep. Since I'd prepared everything for the baby, both babies wore identical outfits and used the same things. Knowing we'd be moving to the recovery center soon, I started to think of a plan. I acted like I had no idea what was going on, lavishing attention on Cedric, and Eleanor and Clarissa didn't seem to notice anything on this. When Eleanor took Clarissa for her check-up, I grabbed Reginald and said, "Listen, don't ask questions. Just swap our baby with Clarissa's. Once it's done, I'll explain everything." Trust me, Reginald, who always went along with whatever I said, was clearly rattled. He couldn't bring himself to do something like swapping babies. I was practically on the verge of tears. Reginald hesitated for what felt like ages, but when he saw me getting upset, he finally gritted his teeth and switched the babies. When Clarissa and Eleanor came back, they looked like they'd seen a ghost. They stayed silent for a while, but nothing came out of their mouths. What could they say? They couldn't exactly claim that my baby was theirs. A paternity test would settle it in a heartbeat. The next day, we moved into the recovery center. I wasn't letting that baby out of my sight for a second. I made sure to memorize every little detail, every tiny birthmark. Now it was just me and Reginald in the room, him holding the baby, looking all pensive. I could tell he wanted to ask something, but after I made him swap the babies, and with Clarissa and Eleanor still hanging around, he was too nervous to speak up. I motioned for him to shut the door and started to explain. "Reginald, I had this crazy dream. I dreamed Clarissa swapped my baby and then killed him. We ended up raising Cedric, but he turned into a total backstabber and caused our deaths. The dream felt so real. You have to believe me. If you don't, we can do a paternity test. This is our baby." I was all over the place with my words, but Reginald stayed quiet for a long time before finally saying, "I thought the same thing. This baby definitely seems more like you, but I figured it was normal since Clarissa's baby looks like you too." Reginald pulled out his phone. "And your mom said you fell, but I checked the footage and it looks like Clarissa pushed you. I'm not sure if it was intentional or not, but that's what it looks like." I glanced at the footage, and yeah, it was pretty clear Clarissa had shoved me on purpose. Reginald wrapped his arms around me, trying to reassure me. "Don't worry. We've got the baby back. They won't suspect a thing." But could it really be that simple? The more time passed, the more nervous I got. We'd been at the recovery center for a while now, but Clarissa and Eleanor hadn't shown up. Once. In my past life, they'd come by practically every day to see Cedric. They'd always go on and on about how adorable and charming he was. Clarissa had even complained about her own baby being dull and uninteresting. I knew for a fact now. They knew the babies had been swapped back, but they weren't saying anything or making a fuss because they had something else planned. After 2 months at the recovery center, I finally headed home. As soon as I walked in the door, I spotted Clarissa and Eleanor sitting by the entrance, holding the baby, waiting for me. Eleanor looked like she was about to blow a gasket. "What's the deal with the code? Why did you change it without telling me? I've been standing out here forever." Honestly, why on earth would I tell her? Clarissa, holding Cedric, flashed a smile that looked more like a grimace. "Nadia, there's construction next door to our place, and it's just chaos. We'll stay with you for a while, all right? Once the noise settles down, we'll head back home." Now, Reginald and I both said no, not this time. "Eleanor, Clarissa, this isn't right. If you need a place, I can find you somewhere to stay for. Having both babies in the same space is going to mess with Nadia's rest. You know that." But Eleanor and Clarissa weren't having it. They had already made up their minds. Eleanor took it to the next level, dramatically flopping down on the ground. "Fine, but you don't need to find us a place. We'll just camp out right here in front of your door. Your building's got a big enough hallway, doesn't it?" Clarissa wiped away a fake tear, sobbing just enough for effect. "If your brother were still around, he'd never let me and the baby sleep out here." I thought about terminating the pregnancy, but I couldn't bear the idea of him not having a kid to pass on the family name. And anyway, it's your family's bloodline. How could you just turn your back on us? Eleanor's voice grew even louder, a mix of indignation and melodrama. "Ungrateful. Cold-hearted. I'm just asking for a place to stay temporarily, and this is how you treat me? Fine. Maybe I should just die now, while I can still get around. I'll hang myself on your doorstep. Maybe then you'll see." When I first got this second chance at life, I thought that if I could just get away from Eleanor And Clarissa, I could protect my child and preserve my brother's legacy. After all, my brother had always treated me so well, and I could never bring myself to harm an innocent child. If I could, I still hoped for a peaceful solution. I might even be able to forgive their past mistakes and help them financially if need be. But watching these two throw themselves into a full-on meltdown talking about suicide and threatening to jump off buildings made me see things clearly. No matter what I did, they were going to cling to us like parasites. Even if the whole baby switching issue was over, they would find a way to suck us dry, and worse, they might hurt my child. After all, I just had a C-section, so I couldn't have another baby for 3 years. If anything happened to my baby, Clarissa and Eleanor would certainly push me to adopt Cedric, or even worse, just drop him at my doorstep, expecting me to take care of my brothers.
Child.
The only way my family and I would ever have peace was if these two were out of the picture. I stood at the door, took a deep breath, and said, "Fine. Stay as long as you need. You can help with the kids." That night, I went over the footage from the security cameras. As expected, it was just as I had imagined. Clarissa couldn't figure out why Eleanor was so insistent on staying here, and she scolded her for messing up the baby swap. Apparently, it was Eleanor's mistake. Eleanor tried to defend herself, but with the truth staring them in the face, there was nothing left to say. Finally, she sighed and said, "I've made up my mind. We're staying here. It's perfectly normal for a baby to die in some accident. If Nadia's baby doesn't make it, she'll shift her attention to our child." The two didn't continue discussing how they would handle things, but I knew they weren't done yet. The day after they moved in, Clarissa insisted I stop breastfeeding. She told me it would make my boobs sag and suggested I switch to formula. She even recommended a specific brand, saying it was perfect for both babies. So this was her plan, to stir up trouble with the formula. I went along with it and bought the formula, agreeing to feed the baby with it. But when I brought it home, I caught Eleanor on the security camera sneaking a few big spoonfuls of salt into the can of formula meant for my baby. Meanwhile, Clarissa's can of formula was untouched. Babies aren't supposed to have salt, for crying out loud. Just as I thought. They didn't want my baby to grow up. They wanted me to shift all my attention to Cedric. Instead, if I fed him that, it could easily cause kidney failure. That's exactly how my baby died in my past life. I grabbed the salted formula and set it down on the nightstand. "Thanks, Mom. I'll feed the baby once he wakes up. You go check on Clarissa." I think I heard Cedric crying. Eleanor really wanted to see the baby drink that salted formula, but her worry over her grandson kicked in. After a quick hesitation, she left. As soon as she was out the door, I tossed the formula down the toilet and went back to breastfeeding. My milk was plenty for my baby. I didn't need any formula. While Eleanor was out grocery shopping, I grabbed the other can of formula and dumped a few big spoonfuls of salt into it. "Cedric, you poisoned us in our last life. This time, I'm giving you a taste of your medicine." The next few days were pretty chill. Eleanor cooked up a storm for us, always trying new recipes, while Clarissa went on and on about how Cedric smiled every time he saw me. She said he was always so happy to see me, practically swooning. When she saw I wasn't too thrilled, she added, "Cedric looks just like your brother. Too bad he never got to meet his kid." Every time, Eleanor would mix up the formula first, almost like she was worried I might try it. She'd always take a sip from her own arm to make sure it was salty before handing it over. I'd just take the bottle, wait for her to turn around, and then dump it when her back was turned. Back to breastfeeding. If I had any other way out of this, I'd kick them both to the curb in a heartbeat. I didn't tell Reginald what I was doing. I didn't mention what Eleanor and Clarissa had been up to. Instead, I reassured him that they both regretted their actions. I didn't want him to do something crazy, like confront them and get into trouble. I wasn't worried about them, but I couldn't risk him going to jail over this. I became like a mama bear, hardly ever leaving my room. Every time Clarissa asked me to go for a walk, I'd make up some excuse about feeling off and turn her down. After about 2 weeks, I finally said, "I'm really worried. The baby's peeing so little lately. Maybe we should take him to the doctor?" Eleanor's face lit up, a grin spreading across her face. "Oh, don't worry about it. Babies pee less sometimes. The formula's probably too thick. I'll just water it down next time." I acted worried, but with Clarissa and Eleanor both ganging up on me, I reluctantly gave up on the idea of going to the doctor. Not long after, Cedric started showing signs. Just like I predicted, his urine started to drop. Significantly. I was pretty sure it was his kidneys. After all, how could a baby's kidneys handle so much salt? I didn't feel an ounce of guilt. Clarissa was holding Cedric while she and Eleanor chatted in the living room. Eleanor, we really need to take him to the doctor. He's barely peeing at all. There's gotta be something wrong. Eleanor hesitated, clearly remembering what she'd said to me a few days ago about how it was normal for babies to pee less. I overheard enough and stepped into the living room. We should definitely take them to the
doctor.
It's probably nothing, but it wouldn't hurt to get both kids checked out. You never know what could be wrong until we do. I made a show of grabbing the phone to call Reginald, but Eleanor quickly snatched it. Hospital? No way. There are germs everywhere. The baby's fine. He just hasn't been eating enough. If we give him more, he'll be just fine. Clarissa and I exchanged worried glances, both of us clearly uneasy. But Eleanor wasn't having it. She refused to let me take Julian to the hospital. Instead, she just stood there, staring at the formula on the counter, looking like she was lost in thought. I could tell she was second-guessing herself. Knowing she'd want to check, I quickly shooed her out of the house, telling her to go grab some fruit. Clarissa, still deep in thought, took the baby back to her room. Feeling like I was sneaking around, I hurried into the kitchen, poured out all the formula meant for Clarissa's baby into the sink, and then opened a fresh can. I poured out just enough, making sure it looked just like the original before leaving. Just as I suspected. When Eleanor came back, she checked my room first. Seeing I was pretending to sleep, she quietly closed the door behind her. I was watching her on the security footage. She made a bottle of formula for Clarissa's baby, tasted it to be sure, and then rushed off to talk to Clarissa. Their voices were low, but I could still hear them perfectly. If only one can of formula had salt in it, then why is my baby not peeing either? Eleanor thought for a moment, then shrugged. Maybe he's just not drinking enough. Don't worry, every time I've made formula for Nadia's baby, I've tasted it. It was definitely salty. And her baby isn't peeing either. How could I have messed that up?
I remember exactly.
I only added salt to one can. How could Nadia's formula be salty if mine wasn't? At that, they both seemed to relax. But from now on, they'd be more careful. They'd probably be watching the formula like
hawks.
Still, Cedric had already consumed so much salt, and without treatment, I wasn't sure if things would improve. Sure enough, Cedric's condition got worse. A week later, he completely stopped urinating. This time, no matter how much Eleanor tried to talk her way out of it, Clarissa insisted on taking Cedric to the hospital. I acted worried and went along with her. But as soon as we stepped out the door, I dropped the baby off with my in-laws. Cedric was in serious trouble, and I didn't want them to take their anger out on my baby.
I
had to keep him safe. My in-laws were more than happy to help, but they were a little confused. I just told them Cedric wasn't feeling well and that I was worried it might affect my own baby, so I asked them to look after him. When we finally got to the hospital, we overheard the doctor speaking seriously to Clarissa and Eleanor. Did you give the baby salt? His kidneys are in complete failure. Clarissa went pale and fainted on the spot. Eleanor went completely white, stumbling over her words. Salt? Did we give him salt? No, I would never give my grandson salt. Babies can't have salt. It could kill them. Oh, really? That's my mom for you. She knew I'd always been good to her, and good to Clarissa, but they were too greedy. They didn't want good. They wanted perfect. I quickly stepped forward. Doctor, a few days ago, my nephew wasn't able to pee. I wanted to take him to the hospital, but my mom wouldn't let me. After they left, I got suspicious, so I went to check the formula in the kitchen. That's when I found out it was salty. The doctor, looking like he'd dealt with this before, sighed after confirming the baby had consumed salt. You all need to prepare yourselves, this isn't looking good. With that, Eleanor fainted too, her eyes rolling back in her head. Clarissa and Eleanor were still out cold when the doctor came to me with a heavy heart. I'm sorry, but it's too late. If you'd brought them in earlier, when the kidney failure wasn't so severe, there might have been a chance. But now, I thanked him, my chest tight. Then I called Reginald to fill him in. He was furious on the other end of the line, his voice shaking with rage. Good riddance. They got what they deserved. Trying to swap the babies after all that? Unbelievable. I told him to stay with his parents and keep an eye on the baby. He had to make sure neither Clarissa nor Eleanor could get anywhere near him. He assured me he would take care of it. After hanging up, Clarissa slowly started to wake up. Her first words were a desperate whisper. "Nadia, where's my baby? How's he doing?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I pulled out the footage of Eleanor putting salt in the
Formula.
"I've always treated you too well, but why did you do this to me? You pushed me when my water broke, then stayed in my house, and how my mom put salt in my baby's formula. It's a miracle my baby survived while yours died." Clarissa's face twisted in disbelief as she sobbed, shaking her head. No way. It shouldn't be my child who died. It should have been yours." I couldn't hold it in anymore. The anger I'd bottled up for so long exploded, and I slapped her hard across the face. Her cheek immediately swelled, and blood trickled from the corner of her
Mouth.
But Clarissa didn't seem to feel it. She didn't care about the pain. Instead, she screamed, "This is so unfair. You got it all. Sweet in-laws and a rich, handsome, loving man who's always there for you. Meanwhile, I'm stuck with a nasty mother-in-law and a husband who died young." Clarissa seemed to have lost her mind. She actually started laughing as she looked at "And I'll make sure your baby dies. If I can't have what you've got, then I'll take the one thing you love
Most.
Your brother was always so good to you. What's wrong with raising his kid? Why should you even get to have your own? You shouldn't have kids, ever. Your baby may have survived now, but sooner or later it'll die. It will." I slapped her again, my voice cold as I spoke. "It's a shame, isn't it? My baby's fine, and yours is gone. You only have yourself to blame for trusting my mother, who couldn't even tell regular formula from the kind with salt in it. This is karma. You brought it upon yourselves." Clarissa shot me a venomous look. "You killed my child. I won't forget this. I'll make you pay." I pointed at my phone. "If you're so sure, go find the person who actually killed your kid. Stop wasting your time throwing threats at me. I didn't do this. The person you're looking for? They're living right next door." With that, I turned and walked out of the hospital without looking back. But instead of heading home, I went to stay at my in-law's house, deciding it would be safer there for a while. I figured I'd wait until Clarissa had gone after Eleanor, but I didn't expect her to act so fast. A few days later, I got a call from the police, asking me to come to the hospital. When I got there, I learned that after being discharged, Clarissa had kept her cool. She and Eleanor showed up at my house first, knocking on the door for hours. They were convinced I was hiding inside, avoiding them. The two of them argued non-stop, blaming each other for Cedric's
Death.
It got so loud that the property manager had to step in and warn them. If they didn't leave, they'd call the cops. That's when they finally stormed off, grumbling and frustrated. They headed home, but it looked like Clarissa had finally realized who was really at fault. Eleanor. It was Eleanor's blunder that caused the baby swap to fail. It was Eleanor who couldn't even tell the difference between the regular formula and the one with salt, leading to her child's death from kidney failure. On the surface, Clarissa and Eleanor were friendly, but behind closed doors, Clarissa was plotting. She drugged Eleanor to make sure she stayed unconscious. Then she locked the doors and windows, turned on the gas, and left her to die. By the time the neighbors smelled the gas the next morning, it was too late. Eleanor had passed away, but Clarissa? She was gone. Security footage showed her walking toward the bridge, but after that, she just disappeared. The police thought she might have jumped, but I wasn't buying it. Eventually, thanks to my persistence, the police found Clarissa. But by then, she was already
Dead.
It turned out that Clarissa had walked to the bridge, maybe to clear her head or maybe end it all. She ran into a group of homeless men who had the misfortune of finding her late at
Night.
They dragged her into an underpass. The men held her there for days, torturing her until she bled out. By the time the cops found, it was Eleanor's blunder that caused the baby swap to fail. It was Eleanor who couldn't even tell the difference between the regular formula and the one with salt, leading to her child's death from kidney failure. On the surface, Clarissa and Eleanor were friendly, but behind closed doors, Clarissa was plotting. She drugged Eleanor to make sure she stayed unconscious. Then she locked the doors and windows, turned on the gas, and left her to die. By the time the neighbors smelled the gas the next morning, it was too late. Eleanor had passed away, but Clarissa? She was gone. Security footage showed her walking toward the bridge, but after that, she just disappeared. The police thought she might have jumped, but I wasn't buying it. Eventually, Thanks to my persistence, the police found Clarissa. But by then, she was already
Dead.
It turned out that Clarissa had walked to the bridge, maybe to clear her head or maybe to end it all. She ran into a group of homeless men who had the misfortune of finding her laid at
Night.
They dragged her into an underpass. The men held her there for days, torturing her until she bled out. By the time the cops found her body was already decaying. The homeless men didn't care. They were happy to be arrested, figuring at least they'd get free food in prison. They didn't even resist, quickly admitting to the crime. With smiles on their faces, they were taken away. The nightmare from my past life was finally over. The people who had hurt so many were finally facing the consequences. I looked at my lively, healthy son and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. The end.